everyone, System Coral here. Today I'm doing a video that's a little bit different, but I feel like it's important to talk about. I'm going to be doing a video today on Sybil and whether she's a good representation of DID or not. Now, this is going to have a trigger warning. We will be talking about topics such as toxic relationships with therapists, drug use, especially barbiturates, medical treatment, sexual and physical abuse, torture, subjects such as that, but it won't be going into details about those type of abuse. If this is something that triggers you, I suggest clicking away. If not, we shall continue. I won't be going into detail about the abuse that she says she reported to suffer from, just because you can find that information in the books and the sources I'm going to list, and I don't want to go into triggering details. Sybil is the fake name used for the book of Shirley Mason. Shirley Mason grew up in Minnesota and then later spent the rest of her life in Kentucky after the book was published. She was an art teacher, became an art teacher in the early 1950s. She saw Cornelia B. Wilbur after she experienced what she reported as blackouts and emotional breakdowns. Their sessions are what inspired Wilbur's book, which was Sybil, and they used the name Sybil to hide Shirley's real identity. But everyone found it out, and this is why she moved to Kentucky later in her life. Everyone knew it was Shirley Mason. Wilbur was a Freudian psychotherapist, sorry. Yeah. So what that means is that she was a psychotherapist that relied heavily on Sigmund Freud's theories. Now, Sigmund Freud, there's good and there's bad. He did amazing steps for psychotherapy, but he was an incredibly flawed man that also created a lot of crazy theories, and the psychiatric community is very split on him because although he has made very accurate statements on psychoanalytics and was truthful in some situations, this is the same man who created the Oedipus complex. He did have some very flawed theories as well, and some of the things that he advocated for, such as injecting intravenous barbiturates into patients to try to get repressed memories, have found to be very flawed. But the fact that she is a Freudian psychoanalyst is very important to talk about, since the things she did with Sybil, or Shirley Mason, heavily relied on Sigmund Freud's original theories. Shirley Mason was in treatment for 11 years before she was deemed integrated. Now, it wasn't 11 years of trying to integrate. The integration happened within a very short time span at the end before the book was released, which is also a very important point. Wilbur, already established, had a very special interest in what was known then as multiple personality disorder. She was very specially interested in it, and she even told Mason before their therapy started to read up on multiple personality disorder, and before Mason was even diagnosed, she told Mason to read up on it and to read more materials on the disorder. Mason's mother was diagnosed as a schizophrenic. Mason reported that her mother, through the process, including while she was being administered barbiturates, she reported that her mother had tortured her and sexually and physically abused her. At the end of the book, Sybil was cured by remembering the trauma. Now, we now know nowadays that integration is more than just remembering your trauma. but Wilbur claimed that after Sybil remembered all of her repressed memories, that, sorry, I used quotations, but I'm quoting what they said. When I use quotations, I'm quoting what they're saying. At the end of the book, Sybil was cured by remembering all of her trauma. And then all of the symptoms were gone after she remembered all of her trauma. Wilbur injected Mason with barbiturates, specifically sodium pentothal, which is known in the psychiatric community back then as truth serum. But also she technically injected her with 2 different drugs, which I will talk about at the end of the video. When she was injected with sodium pentothal, more personalities came out when she was injected and under the influence, and the personalities that were reported became more distinct. So they became more of a distinct personality when she was under the influence. Mason was already reported as being highly suggestible and feeling the need to please Wilbur. And Wilbur was also known to dramatize the memories that Mason did have, such as saying that certain dates were important when they weren't really important to Mason, such as birthdays and other dates like that. So dramatizing memories, stuff like that. 2 years after being diagnosed, Sybil or Shirley wrote a letter to Wilbur confessing that she fabricated her personalities. The letter, and I quote, stated, "I don't have any multiple personalities. I do not even have a double. I am all of them. I have been lying in my pretense of them." That is what the letter stated. And she wrote that to her therapist, Wilbur. Now, she wrote that letter just before the book was finished, when the book was already in progress of being made. Wilbur tried to claim that the letter was just avoiding going deeper into therapy. At the time the letter was wrote, she had already planned the book and did presentations on Shirley's case. Wilbur was providing for Mason financially, seeing her closely outside of sessions, such as going to her house, eating dinner with her. Wilbur would buy Shirley clothes, so Shirley was, Wilbur was also paying Shirley's rent. So Shirley was very dependent on Wilbur in day-to-day life outside of therapy, in a relationship that was very inappropriate. Even back in the 50s, it was a very inappropriate relationship. Wilbur said that Wilbur alluded to Shirley that if she didn't have MPD, that they would have to stop sessions. Shirley said that she got the impression that if she didn't have MPD, multiple personality disorder, that they would have to stop seeing each other and the relationship would have to end. There was another therapist that was also involved in this. Wilbur enlisted the help of Schreiber for writing the book. Now, Schreiber also occasionally saw Shirley for therapy sessions and also was fact-checking Shirley's story so the book would be inaccurate, since the book was claiming to be completely 100% true. He did, actually, it didn't state whether Schreiber was, what pronoun Schreiber used, so I don't remember if it was he or she. I believe Schreiber was a woman, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'll just use they. They fact-checked it and fact-checked Shirley's story and did find inconsistencies. April of 24th, 1997, Schreiber gave an interview and stated that Shirley wasn't multiple, but just hysterical. Mason did die of breast cancer in 1998. after her death, 3 books came out against her. And those books, you can find more information about it in the sources I'm going to list. Now, one of the biggest books was The Extraordinary Story Behind the Famous and Multiple Personality Disorder Case. And it was written by journalist and author Debbie Nathan. Debbie Nathan really, in this book, dives into, and she also did articles as well, like interviews. It really does dive more into the inconsistencies and the discrepancies and such. And I think I already talked about the fact that Wilbur diagnosed Shirley Mason with pernicious anemia, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. Now, to talk about the 2 drugs that were given to Shirley, the 2 drugs that were given to Shirley were Thorazine, which is an antipsychotic that has a tendency to cause extreme side effects such as hallucinations, and sodium pentothal, also called truth serum in the psychiatric community. And it is a barbiturate, which is administered intravenously, which is through a vein, and is known to cause subjects to be suggestible and memories to be subject to reconstruction and fabrication, which is a big reason why it is not used today in psychotherapy, and why it also is not used in the court system, because there's no way to know that the memories being found under it and what things are saying are actually real. And it does cause people have been documented to be highly suggestible and to be able to have memories kind of changed while under the influence of this drug. And then also, Sybil had pernicious anemia, or also called Addison's anemia. Sorry, I was just checking something. And what that is a decrease in red blood cells, which is caused when the body can't absorb B12. Now, I can attest to this as well, because I actually have one of my medications I'm on to help with my POTS causes a B12 deficiency, which can cause many side effects that can look like a lot of disorders. The common symptoms for this, though, which you're going to have the effects, because of this, you're going to have the combined effects of the symptoms of B12 deficiency, and you're going to have symptoms of anemia mixed together. Now, those common symptoms of this disorder are numbness, which is tingling in the legs and feet, the hands and legs, fatigue, shortness of breath. There's many other physical symptoms, such as loss of appetite. Also, confusion, depression, anxiety, impaired memory, poor concentration, and irritability. It did not say that she was being treated for this, it just said that she was diagnosed with it. But this also, I forgot his name already. Schreiber did in some documents theorize that what looked like MPD or DID now was actually a mix of her pernicious anemia mixed with the medications that she was given causing susceptibility. So those 3 things are very important in this case. Now, would I say it's a good representation of DID? No, I would not, because she wrote a letter to Wilbur admitting that she made it up. So, no, I do not think it's a good representation of DID. I actually think it's very frustrating that nowadays people immediately think of DID as Sybil, when 1, Sybil is a character in a book, so it's not even the right name, and 2, there are so many inconsistencies, there are so many red flags in the therapeutic relationship between the 2, and 2, with the other factors in and inconsistencies. So I just feel like I'm not going to say whether she has DID or not. I personally think that since she admitted to not having it, I'm more inclined to believe that she doesn't. But whether she does or doesn't is not my business and not my place to say. I think it's a really horrible representation of DID, and I feel like the community should. I know most of the community, DID community, doesn't like Sybil. They're tired of her being the representation everyone always talks about of us. And I really think when discussing DID, she should not be included in it. She should not be talked about, and we should not be compared to her. And I think anyone who does talk about Sybil and compare her to the DID community, I think they're doing a giant disservice and a mockery to the DID community, because there are so many other representations they could use, so many real systems who speak up about system issues, and they're choosing to use someone like her as representation, and I feel that's a huge disservice to the community to do so. If you would like to hear better representations, I am doing a DID in the media series where I talk about it, and if you want to do better representation of people with DID, I do have a list of better representation you can use, so I'd be happy to make a video on better representation you can use. Off the top of my head, Jess for Multiplicity and Me, great thing to use. She's a great person. I would totally recommend. She's a great example. There are other systems on YouTube that are also great examples, such as Cryptid System, such as Nocturnal Rainbow System. She's also a good representation. People that are actually do have consistent and diagnosed DID who talk about it. My DID in the media series, I'm going to be talking about that. Many Faces of Jane. She's a great example of DID. She's diagnosed with DID and did a documentary on her illness. So, listening to actual systems who want to educate and don't have underlying bias and underlying ulterior motive are great examples, but I think Sybil is a horrible representation. I think it does a huge disservice to the community to talk about her. That's just my personal opinion, and I don't hold highly to people using her as representation of DID. I don't think highly of people who do that. So, that's just my 2 cents, and that is talking more about a systems perspective of if Sybil is a good representation, and more information about Sybil from a systems point of view, and as someone who did the research on her and has documentation of backing up the claims. And I'll put that in the description. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and I'll see you guys next video.